Nemesite is crouching on the ground, clutching at the bleeding wound under his ribs. His tortured body is still strong, and everything in his posture expresses a will to fight on. The red scarf no longer covers his face, and the vigilante grins at you with bloodied teeth. Weak. I have yet to be impressed. The bright, familiar eyes of the flute player from the lower decks glints with boldness. The humble swindler who used to play tricks on fools with the help of his trained rat now nods at you mockingly. I've been waiting for this meeting, Lord Captain. No longer covered by the broken goggles, the hairless skull is bulging with massive growths. However, the mutant nature of your enemy is just as quickly betrayed by an even more unsettling feature: the third arm growing out of his torso. You watch as its fingers deftly empty the drum of a stub revolver and load it with fresh rounds. I remember you. The flautist who sang of the people's saviors even as he robbed them blind. Yeah, that certainly tracks. Not only them. As you can see, I also sang glorious songs about the cruelty of the officers, the callousness of the Lord Captain, the bravery of the selfless Nemesite. Nobody ever notices the pathetic little flute player who always carries a few ration cards for bribing enforcers, do they? Hiding in the shadows of your rotten kingdom was far too easy. That's fair, but I'll note that that's largely because up until a month or two ago, I had no idea you even existed. And now that I do, you'll note that things have turned out a mite bit differently. You've lost, Nemesite. You talk a big game about freedom for the masses, but I think we both know that's never what this was all about. Your cause was corrupt from the start, and thus it was always doomed to fail. Any last words before we end this? Nemesite laughs derisively. Freedom? I care nothing for freedom or for the throngs willing to offer their necks to your yoke. I will not die for these wretches, but I will gladly pay for your demise with my life. Both you and your drudges come from the same rotten root. That is why you are so easy to fool. Nemesite and his march against authority are just a fancy story to tell the rabble, a convenient tool for recruiting the wronged and the dispossessed. In truth, all of you must die and make way for those who are truly worthy. More pure, more pious, more courageous than any of you ever were. Yeah, that sounds about right. The one who sang loudest about oppression was just the one who wished he got to choose who was being oppressed. What about Adalbert, your father? True believer or unwitting pawn? No, Adalbert believed in what I believe. He was just as willing to sacrifice himself as I am. You disgusted him, and I am proud that he was able to deal such a blow against your paltry authority. I mean, it wasn't really that bad. I'm still in charge, right? That said, you're a fool if you think I didn't notice that he bore the mark. The one you use to control people. Adalbert was a tool for you to use and discard, just like everyone else who's fallen under your sway. You preyed upon the very people you claimed to champion. My people. And for that, you will pay. Something in your voice causes Nemesite's sneer to fade and his gun to shake. But only for a moment. I see you have appropriated their names and memories as well. How fitting. To use people, even in death. Well, I mean, yeah, servitors and the like, but better to abuse people in death than in life, I suppose. It's all relative. Anyway, you've already lost, Nemesite. Surrender now, and face justice for your multitude of wrongs. Aren't you a little overconfident? Nemesis casts a glance at the stub revolver in his hand, then back at you. You are right in front of me. My gun is loaded. I believe this tune is not quite finished yet. It feels like time has become viscous and is slowing you down. You see the bloody hand of Nemesis raise the weapon, and your body reacts of its own accord. Yeah, it seemed weird when he just started reloading his gun in front of us. There is no time to deliberate. You draw your weapon and point the barrel at Nemesis, but he's already aiming his own at you. A malevolent grin spread over his face. The two black muzzles stare into each other, and the world around you narrows to a thin line. Cabela emerges nearby like a shadow, blade gleaming menacingly in her hand. She hisses softly, ready to pounce. It is your thread that will break today, and no other. Save your message for your false god when you meet him, servant of death. I am glad I get to take you both down at once. The second gun is now pointing at Cabela. I vow that your murderous sect will fall, along with the Lord Captain. Oh, interesting. Possible misdirect, or is the cult actually its own separate thing? Though still one that we will ultimately need to contend with, since I do still firmly believe that they're up to no good. Oh gosh, and these are all personal skill checks. Why can it never be logic? Alright, well, we'll try this, I guess. You're awfully chatty for a soon-to-be corpse. But I'll tell you what, Nemesis, I'll give you a sporting chance. I do feel a mite bit silly standing here with my rifle. If I'd realized this was a proper duel, I'd have gone for my pistol instead. What do you say? You think you're fast enough to beat me on the draw? Nemesis tensely watches your hand reach for the non-existent backup weapon. Evidently, he is unfamiliar with this old dirty trick that has cost so many gullible duelists their lives. As he prepares himself for an underhanded attack, he divides his attention, still smiling brashly. You only have two? That is not much of a choice. A tense silence falls, for all the words have been spoken. At last, Nemesis says quietly, It's time. Farewell, Lord Captain. The acerbic smile vanishes from his face. Instead, his demeanor turns cold, collected, calm, with the indifferent grimace of a skull. Time stops for a moment, and then, as if tossed by a blast wave, the events fly forward like murderous shrapnel. Logic! Now! You and Cabela move as one, and you manage to confuse Nemesis with a perfectly timed maneuver. He is left hesitant to fire, but you are not. Cabela takes a deep breath and wipes the blood off her blade. The living legend's head lies severed at her feet. The decapitated body lies motionless on the deck. The cut at the neck stares back at you from the grotesquely distorted ridge of its spine. The power of the folk myth fades into the air like the smoke billowing from the muzzle of his stub revolver. Kibbles? You okay? He did not harm me. Cabela looks at Nemesis' body with an incomprehensible expression. But he tried. Such was his idea, and he remained committed to it until his last breath. His was a good death. Well, good, bad, or just plain ugly. Dead is dead. And thank goodness for that. Thus ends the struggle of the Nemesis. Cabela picks the severed head from the deck and gazes into its extinguished eyes with strange wistfulness. The struggle is not people. The struggle is ideas. And people are merely their vessels. The carriers of the struggle. Okay. I need to reflect on his death, Daman. I need to stand before the Undying One and hear his blessed whisper. We can discuss what happened after. Right, of course, that we will. Right, because I dumped her blade ages ago. She spawned a new one just for that kill. Through sheer force of will. But regardless, thus falls the Nemesite, at least this one. I'm sure there will be others. And we made it through largely unscathed. Well, physically at least. Jury's still out on Cabela. Deadshot stub revolver. We've found one of those before. Nice high-power stub gun. And Promise of Freedom, which we also glimpsed when we looked over his stats earlier. As well as Promise of Retribution. Interesting. This one we did not see. Slightly stronger than Promise of Freedom, though less so than the Deadshot. With extra ballistic skill damage for each stack of fatigue. Right, that's how he almost dropped Yerliet. Efficient body glove. Nothing to write home about. And Relics of Unknown Saints. When the wearer has less than 50% wounds, every second attack against them is automatically dodged. Oh, but only for a whopping 2 rounds. So again, nothing to really write home about. Which is a shame. I was really hoping we'd find something nice. Such as, for example, several advanced push grenades. And an LD pattern needle rifle. No, that's... Well, no, that's just too much of a step down from the deadly repeater. I keep trying to find a nice, decent, solid projectile sniper rifle to potentially switch Valen off to. You know, just to further differentiate him from Yerliet's combat style. Have one focused on energy, the other on solid, but it's just not happening. I mean, generally speaking, long lasses just seem to be naturally superior to more conventional sniper rifles. So yeah, that'll likely all end up in cargo as well. Nemesite has fallen. All hail the Lord Captain. Why, thank you, Miss Trofgold. You weren't too shabby yourself. What about Zerman? Is he still around here somewhere? I really hope he didn't bite it. Also, was the Nemesite just hanging out behind that altar the entire ceremony? I was kind of half expecting to find a secret door back there, but apparently not. Oh, okay, I know where we are. Man, it's been ages since we were in this room. This was way back during the original... Actually, no, we've been in here a couple of times. Yeah, this was used in the prologue, and it was used during our first date with Cassia. Oh, hey, there he is. The aberration dared violate the sacred ceremony and was obliterated. Retribution has been served. Well said, Zerman. Glad you made it through. Next time, maybe head for the exit instead of the corner. Just saying. And I think we're done. Let's pop back out to the bridge. I'll do some quick trading, and then we'll check in with Kibbles. See how she's holding up.
Take heed, Nemo. Our blessed Domin honors us with a visit. the one who delivered this ark from the curse of your existence.
The malformed skull in Cabela's hands has been polished to a pale sheen. Its empty eye sockets pose a question that can only be answered in death. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is good and normal. Kibbles, who's your friend there? Is that who I think it is?
An aberration. Your former foe. His eternal foe. My new companion in shadow and my trophy. You once knew him by the name Nemesite, but now his name is Nemo.
Cabela holds the skull up to your face. Right, yeah. Well, I'm glad to see you haven't lost your head.
Whenever I feel the need to voice my thoughts, I turn to him. He is far wiser in death than when he was alive.
Well, to be fair, that is probably true. So, is this why you wanted to talk?
For years, I have been honing my body and spirit through sacred rituals. I have ushered hundreds of souls to the other side. The hunt for Nemesite was not my first. Yet, after my enemy fell, for the first time ever, I felt empty. And that emptiness only grew heavier under the weight of the question that formed in my mind during that hunt.
She forces the words out of herself.
I prayed. I longed for his guidance to put my mind at rest. But in my self-pity, I showed weakness in the eyes of the Undying One. And so, my only answer was silence. I must therefore ask you this agonizing question, Domin. Tell me, what is the purpose of the blood-spun web?
Oh, well, that is quite a loaded question, Cabela. Though I do applaud you for being self-aware enough to actually think to ask it. I assume this is because you're comparing yourself to the singular self-destructive goals of your new friend there?
Please, just answer me.
You know what, that's fair. I suppose... Oh boy. I mean, none of these really seems like they're all that great a response. Truthfully, I feel like the Bloodspun Web are just a bunch of deadly, terrifying zealots, but I also feel like that might not be the best thing to tell Cabela during her obvious midlife crisis here. I suppose the best thing to do would be to remind her that with great power comes great responsibility. She did kind of stumble across that thought during her solo adventure down below, the brief realization that the people around her might not perceive her savage stabbage the same way she does. Well, you serve the Emperor, of course. Much as I do. And of course, much as the Emperor protects us. It is up to us to use his grace to protect those around us. Especially those who might not otherwise have the means or methods to protect themselves.
Then that makes me a driver of the ignorant. One who guides people into following an idea they may never hope to comprehend.
I mean, not quite what I was going for, but sure, yeah, that is a less charitable way to interpret what I just said. It's fine, though. She's clearly just lashing out.
All my life, I have walked the road that was prescribed for me. I did as I was told. I searched for the truth in other people's words, then repeated them in my own voice. And I never once questioned my destiny. Until you came along, Nemo.
The way Cabela drags her metal claws across the skull in her hands seems almost affectionate.
I might just as easily have met Nemesight's fate, and he mine. All it would have taken is a different pattern of threads. The only distinction lies in our ideas. Thank you for this conversation, Domin. It has satiated the void that gnaws at my soul, if only for a time. As for how to seal this chasm for good, that I have yet to find out. May the tenets of the web guide me to the truth.
Cabela's gaze has grown pensive. Well, I wish you the best of luck with that. Many people spend their entire lives trying to find themselves, and few succeed. But you know what? They don't usually have a magic deck of cards.
Take heed, Nemo. Our blessed Domin honors us with a visit. The one who delivered this ark from the curse of your existence.
So this is just gonna, like, be a thing now, huh? Yeah, that's cool and good. That's fine. Everything's fine. I was wondering about the Emperor's Tarot.
Ask, Domin.
Well, now that we've finished dealing with the Nemesite, do you think you could do another reading?
Ask the cards, Domin, and I will listen.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I was actually asking for a friend. I'm a little concerned about you, Cabela. Why don't you go ahead and draw some cards for yourself? See what they say.
Let's see. The God Emperor. The Assassin inverted. The Moon inverted. The Preacher.
Cabela stares at you intently. You catch a glimpse of uncertainty in her gaze, but it quickly gives way to cold surety. Emperor, inverted assassin, inverted moon, preacher.
I will meet death twice very soon. The first time, it will not claim anyone, but the second, someone's thread will end, bringing change to many lives. This change may be a blessing or a curse. That is all I see.
Her normally impenetrable gaze gives way to one of anxious confusion. Yeah, she's not the only one. I am also somewhat perplexed. She'll meet death twice. But the first time no one will be claimed, the second someone will. Preacher makes me think Adalbert, but obviously that's already been resolved. Though I suppose it could refer to the Vizier, the first spinner. Which would make sense, given my general assumption that the cult will ultimately prove to be up to no good, whether or not it's part of the whole Gene Stealer plot. Thank you, Kibbles. I think that gives us both a lot to think about. I'll leave you be.
May the Undying One shroud your footsteps from the faithless.
Yeah, you too. Nemes? Interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought to do the whole tarot card reading myself, since the option was grayed out, but one of the raiders recommended I do it, and I'm glad I did, though I'm not entirely sure what the takeaway is. Also, what is this? This is new. The imposing armillary sphere is designed to show the positions of celestial bodies within the current system. Neat. Oh, and then this is also new, these space binoculars. This binocular observation mechanism allows the Lord Captain to calibrate macro cannon fire directly from the bridge, should he see fit to take personal command when defending the ship from the many threats of the void. Huh. The majestic statue towers over the bridge, akin to a benevolent guardian watching over the crew. Right. So I guess these are all just like new iconoclast decorations. Nothing actually functional, but generally reflecting our style. The spirit of this sharp-sighted omniscope can reveal the dim light of distant stars to one who has the courage to plot a course to unexplored systems and illuminate the darkness therein. Yeah, I like that. General themes of exploration, comfort, hope. It does feel like a pretty good match. Alright, let's get back to it. I believe we just stopped off at the Forgotten Twins. Yes. Which has a potential stash and our critical tasks. Okay, let's see what we've got. The coordinates from the ship's log lead to an unremarkable star system. The auger crew reports that the arrays cannot register anything worthy of the Lord Captain's attention. Was this log entry just someone's idea of a joke? If somebody has decided to mock the rogue trader, they are playing a very dangerous game. Well, let's see what the log says. Check the Lord Captain's cogitator on the bridge. Perhaps the data on the rogue trader's personal cogitator could explain the strange entries in the Lord Captain's log. Gosh, you mean the one currently occupied by our resident ghost in the machine? Yeah, we'll go have a chat. But first, let's see what we've got going on over here. The Winterscale Dynasty outpost hails Valen von Valancius and thanks him for the help. The locals are indebted to him. Glory to the rogue trader. Oh, wait, okay, right, yeah, this is, shoot, okay, well this is not at all what I thought it was. This is obviously the undersupplied Winterscale outpost from way back, who apparently called us back just to say thank you. Man, if we had come out here just for that, I would have felt extra silly. Not that the other thing really panned out all that well either, but, you know, 2 birds, 1 stone. We'll go ahead and grab this plasteel while we're here. We have no shortage of extractiums at this point. In fact, I'll probably claim all the unclaimed resources we passed up on earlier. Though the majority of that will be done off-screen, I think. Might as well bank all that stuff before we head into Act 3. Just in case. And let's go have words with Nomos. See what they have to say about all this. Nomos are here. What do you want to talk about? Ooh. Well, Nomos, I couldn't help but notice that some strange things have been popping up in my log as of late. What exactly have you been keeping yourself busy with?
We have been studying and observing, and helping the ship when we can.
Right, yeah. Shoot, is this quest broken again? I feel like we were supposed to get this before we ever met Nomos. But I'll have to log a bug report later. Alright, well, just, I guess, forget about that for now. I also wanted to say, apparently, Incident N87204 was some sort of ship-wide system failure. It only lasted a fraction of a second, but apparently the ship performance improved afterwards.
The incident marked the beginning of us. The ship became better because of us, too. These are all links in the same chain, but we cannot piece them together yet.
Right, which we did basically speculate about earlier when we spoke with Ravor. That the improvements to the system he had detected were in fact Nomos. Which also implies Nomos was introduced into the ship's system prior to Conrad's betrayal. I had previously theorized that it happened right before Theodora was killed, but apparently not. Aside from that, I spoke with most of Theodora's senior crew, the ones who are still alive anyway. And they all seemed strangely oblivious to anything involving the incident and Epitaph. The ones who are most likely to know, the Engineer, Mort, Delphine, they've all conveniently died. Or, as in Conrad's case, they've actively turned against us. All the more reason to track that guy down, I suppose.
Human shells are subject to external influences. Perhaps someone purged their memory archives, or perhaps they simply do not want to access them. It is a shame that no new information was obtained, but Nomos are grateful that you tried.
I'm not really sure I see Theodora erasing people's memories. I'm not even really sure how you'd go about doing that. Though I suppose in a setting with psychers and space magic, anything is possible. And yeah, unfortunately, I guess this quest might just be broken again. It was already broken before, and they fixed it pretty quickly. Hopefully they'll fix it again, but it's hard to say if they'll do it in a timely enough fashion for us to actually finish it before Act 3, which I have heard is when it automatically fails. Hopefully it's nothing too important. But, you know, I suppose if it is, I am going to actually be creating a backup save before we leave Act 2. Primarily, so we could go back and retroactively do the new DLC once it drops another couple of months from now, but yeah, I guess also for critical tasks. Hopefully they'll have whatever's going on with that figured out by then. Which I suppose means we're actually moving into our final stretch here. We've only got, like, maybe 5 or 6 things left on the to-do list. I mean, obviously we need to double-check all the sectors, make sure we're not missing any new content, but aside from that, it's just swing by Footfall, do some quick trading, check for anything new, hit Soto's Tomb and Avioris, that's the Caspalican ship. We've got the Magnetic Storms and Omicron. Though really, all that stuff is pretty short. The only really significant things we have left are the Gene Stealer Station and that one sector we had to skip out on earlier for the Dargonis event. Oh, plus anything we might have left in the travel queue. So yeah, let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. Right. Oh, no, wait. Enemies of humanity board the Void Ship. At the head of the assault is an accursed traitor, a Chaos Space Marine, followed by enraged demons. The Spawn have infiltrated the ship via the storage bay. They cannot be allowed to reach any populated decks, or else the death toll will be exorbitant. No, it's fine. We'll take care of it. Also, I just now realized I forgot to do trading before I talked to Kibbles. Gotta cash in this cargo. More importantly, though, the fact that this combat encounter actually triggered might imply that we've cleared out our backlog of travel events. Let's clear these guys out real quick, then we'll double check. All right, where's our errant space marine? Couple of bloodletters, no big deal. I guess we could just tag one. That should reveal where they're all concealed. Though I suspect it's just further back behind them. Melee up front, ranging back.
Fortune favors the swift.
Oh, yep, there he is. Tucked in back, as expected. Right, two up front. One more in back. Oh, interesting. Okay. We've got two on back left flank. That is slightly problematic, though not to any significant degree. I feel like we're beyond the point of really being threatened by bloodletters. Our main threat is just going to be that Chaos Space Marine. So we will position accordingly. Let's say Abby up front. We need him to grab the Marine's attention as quickly as possible. But he also needs to be close enough for Cass to reach. We'll set her on the balcony here. She'll fall back once she's tagged Abby. Everyone else behind full cover. Minimize the chance they'll catch any strays. And Pask. We'll get Pask on rear guard. Not sure he can actually take those things down, but he can definitely delay them. Cass up first. Let's get Abby set. Pull. Ooh, that actually worked out perfectly. Now he can taunt all three at once. Though, of course, that is still subject to them failing their will checks.
Victory is imminent.
And let's say... endure. Fall back. Set zones. Good luck, Abby. I believe in you. And Pask, who I also believe in, but, you know, maybe ever so slightly less than Abby. But who knows? Perhaps I'll be pleasantly surprised. You know what? We will absolutely take that. Let's knock these guys out. Slap a trap. Set bounties. And start a whittling. Wow, actually exhausted him. Of all the people to fail that toughness check, I would not have expected it from a Chaos Space Marine. Alright, Kibbles, let's get you in there. Go straight for the big guy.
I will leave footprints of scarlet.
Nice, nice. Wow, okay, you might actually just drop him. This guy is shockingly fragile for a Space Marine. Though to be fair, I suppose we have gained like 10 levels since last time we fought one. Yeah, that will do it. That man is super dead. Okay, well that was our only real threat, so let's wrap this up. I mean, yeah, we've still got 5 demons on the table, but relatively speaking, I feel like we're in pretty good shape here. It is kind of funny how this game does sort of skew your view of the power hierarchy in the Warhammer 40k universe. Though I suppose that is kind of a side effect just of leveled RPG and CRPG systems in general, you know? It's the level-based power creep effect, I suppose. The stronger the player becomes, the more powerful the enemies have to become to pose a challenge. And in many cases, that results in situations kind of like this one, where aside from the player being powerful enough to wipe out a Chaos Space Marine and his demonic retinue, by the transitive properties of power levels, it also means that a lot of the other various random people we run into are also theoretically capable of handling that kind of threat. Which does get a bit silly when you're looking at, like, random pirates or other generic mooks. And, you know, it is something that comes up in tabletop, too, especially in games like 3rd edition D&D or Pathfinder, which spins off of it. You know, they commonly pad enemy stats so that they can properly pose a challenge. Honestly, in retrospect, you know, I'm like a decade out of date on tabletop RPGs at this point. But I seem to recall the early Warhammer RPG, at least the Black Library one, being largely inspired by the Call of Cthulhu learned by doing classless system. So there were no artificial levels or power scaling. It's not a system I got to run all that often. My players generally preferred the relative safety net of high fantasy adventuring, as opposed to grimdark settings, especially ones that at that time, you know, took cues from Call of Cthulhu, a game which they very much acted traumatized by, despite the fact that it only ever claimed a fraction of the lives that much more conventional D&D campaigns did. My goodness. Yeah, my body count in D&D must have pushed 100 by the time I finally hung up my Dungeon Master screen. I don't know. I guess that kind of gets into a whole separate thing, though, really. I guess my original point is just the leveling system in this game does kind of lead to a weird, sort of skewed view on the overall power hierarchy. Like, we're a rogue trader and his personal retinue, so I guess it makes sense that we're more powerful than your average random mooks, sure. You know, your average Necromunda gang or your average Imperial Guard kill team. We are naturally strong enough to take on hordes of demons and the occasional Chaos Space Marine.
This tedium is beneath me.
But where it gets weird is when we go back to fighting more conventional threats, because of course those threats also have to be scaled up to then match our power level. I mean, I guess I'm overthinking it. It is, at the end of the day, just another piece of entertainment media. The goal is to present a consistently entertaining gameplay experience, not necessarily to reinforce an internal world logic. I suppose it's really just because it's one of my long-running pet peeves with games like D&D. The leveling mechanic in general does tend to lend itself towards those sorts of absurd scenarios. It's why I personally tended to lean towards classless or levelless systems. Call of Cthulhu, Shadowrun, Deadlands, and the old Black Library Warhammer Fantasy stuff. Which kind of brings us full circle. And it does actually kind of make me wonder, when did levels become part of the Warhammer Fantasy / 40k system? Is that in the current editions of the tabletop game? Or is that just a liberty taken for the sake of the CRPG? Since, I mean, of course, if it is a completely fabricated system created just for the sake of the CRPG, that would certainly go a ways towards explaining a lot of the wild power balance issues. And we're done. Enemies dispatched with nary a scratch. Let's collect our loot and be on our way. Not that there's really much loot to speak of. We've got a heretical bolter and a single tier 1 grenade, which I guess is better than nothing. We'll immediately toss those both in cargo. Really would have expected some, like, heretical trophies or something. Though, oh man, yeah, look at that. It did net us enough XP to push us halfway up towards Exemplar. So yes, well worth our time. And yeah, that really does kind of speak to just how much more powerful we've gotten since the heady days of Aurora and Rykad Minoris. Anyway. Alright, okay, so we are pretty much out of time, but let's try doing one or two more quick hops, just to see if any more travel events trigger. Let me just pop into Palatium Stellos real quick, make sure we don't have anything new here. But I am very curious to see if we have, in fact, exhausted the queue. Nothing new here, but we will grab that. And on to Cradle of Khepri. Wow, okay, yeah. So man, we really are into the final stretch here. If we have no more travel events slowing us down, then that'll really expedite our travel time on those last 5 or 6 things on our to-do list. And honestly, most of those are barely pit stops. The only ones I think we have left that are all that notable are the Gene Stealer Station and that one sector we still have to clear. Though I guess technically we do have a couple of floating sectors. Ones with no clear routes to them. I have heard that they'll open up later down the line, but in theory we could go to them early. Goodness knows we have no shortage of navigator points. I'm just not sure it's worth actually going there early. That said, this feels like a good place to call it. We'll hit the pause button for now. I will take care of the usual off-screen bookkeeping and put together a game plan for how we're going to tackle these last few loose ends. I think we're just 2 episodes out, though it'll really come down to just how involved that space station thing is. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Eerie V23, Revenant, Alois, Dragon Matrix 7, Drakiith, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Kazorm, Mark Giemza, Nathan Welch Jr., OverlordPherom, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Tomasz Piątkowski, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.
Please, just answer me.